Have you ever felt trapped in a pattern that didn't work, despite your best efforts to attract attention and train? I'm Layert, and I'm going to demonstrate to you how your biggest ally may actually be the crucial energy you waste every day. Stay with me through to the end if you lack motivation and feel that something important is missing. What I'm going to share with you on seminal retention might be the change you need to break out of a rut and accomplish unexpected outcomes. The feeling that there is something more than mere mechanical effort that can increase not just physical strength, but also the power of personal attraction, awakens in many people when dissatisfaction overtakes gym training, and the lack of results appears overwhelming. That a lot of men look for, but don't always find. Since I have already experienced this cycle of dedication not yielding the anticipated development, particularly when self-esteem is damaged by the inability to draw attention from women and to physically change, I, Layerta, well understand this sense of discontent. This remark highlights how important it is to examine ourselves and recognize that we possess a special vital force that is frequently overlooked. In order to intentionally utilize this energy and reverse the dominant sense of impotence that arises when results do not materialize, seminal retention is offered. I'm excited to talk about this because I see a chance for personal development in every story of frustration that transcends the gym or the vanity of looking better. During this trip, we first discovered that women are incredibly sensitive to our internal vibration and the cues we give off. It is something that comes from our mental state and is not simply about appearance or physical shape. When a man commits to retention, he starts to detect glances of inquiry or even admiration that were before absent, demonstrating the feminine trait of diligently absorbing energy. And I want to stress that it is a direct reflection of how we begin to act and interact once we take charge of our vital energy, not magic or anything otherworldly. It is evident to me that as soon as we begin to develop this habit, self-confidence grows exponentially, much like compound interest, resulting in observable improvements in our disposition, posture, and approach to everyday obstacles. I've observed that this is also evident in interpersonal situations, as friends, relatives, and co-workers appear taken aback by the new attitude, the calmness in the words, and the security in the gaze. Because people frequently do not instantly comprehend the source of this power, they begin to express interest, ask questions, or even display doubt. This phenomena even alters our social interactions. But I firmly believe that this stored energy affects the environment in addition to bolstering our sense of value. Opportunities start to appear almost as a result of our intentions, which is related to the well-known law of attraction because if we feed positive thoughts and stay steadfast in our resolve to change, advantageous circumstances will present themselves without our having to coerce them. The remark that our mind, by staying in this higher condition, makes it easier to perceive doors that previously seemed closed is not a naive discourse of positivity. Although this outcome is an unavoidable consequence for many who undertake this technique, I have found that this journey goes beyond the simple goal of attracting more ladies. The key distinction is becoming the most stable and self-assured version of oneself, one who isn't swayed by criticism or the skepticism of others. We start to feel filled with our own energy instead of clinging to approval from others, which gives us the flexibility to pursue a path of spiritual and personal development. I recall being taken aback by the intensity of the reactions surrounding me when I first achieved notable retention milestones. My family, who frequently knew very little about the subject, observed that I was more upbeat and patient while handling commonplace circumstances. My longtime friends asked me why I was more driven and thrilled by minor victories. My new enthusiastic involvement in daily life began to be noticed by my co-workers, who were accustomed to seeing me exhausted or disheartened. As it manifests itself in practice, this shift has a huge influence, as though the built-up energy produced an aura of confidence that beyond explanation. I therefore reiterate that this is the beauty of compound interest's effect. Initially, the successes appear minor, but over time this potential grows, and each minor development is somatized to the point of causing changes that, when viewed from the outside, appear nearly miraculous. I'm aware that the part about enduring unfavorable remarks calls for maturity. As we continue on our journey, we frequently encounter people who question or condemn this way of living. I've seen comments that semen, retention is unneeded or unnatural, but I think the inner belief that we are directing our energy in a positive direction is what drives this journey. It is crucial that we pay attention to this process and keep reminding ourselves that we are seeking strength, balance, and self-discovery in order to avoid succumbing to outside pressure. We must dedicate ourselves to our goals of personal development and inner tranquility. Therefore, I firmly believe that the advantages of this practice are far greater than one might first think if someone asks me if it is merely important for people who wish to impress ladies. However, I do not dispute that there is a discernible impact on how women start to see individuals who maintain their retention. They see that we actually possess a fresh quality that we cannot purchase from a store or cultivate through flimsy means. A sort of inherent respect develops when we exhibit integrity and resolve, displaying a self-control that doesn't require boasting to be acknowledged. This brings to memory times when I experienced directly how this exercise can operate as a trigger for an interior upheaval. I used to search for outside answers or place the blame for my lack of progress on things around me when I felt like my training was stagnating or even when I was nervous in social situations. Subsequently, I found that something within me was restored by focusing inward and maintaining my sexual energy. Suddenly, I observed improvements in my breathing during the workouts, during the recuperation period, and in my mood upon awakening. I observed that in social situations, my posture changed from one of someone pleading for attention to one of someone who is at ease and independent in their own space. One of the best qualities of those who follow this path, in my opinion, is their ability to support themselves. Seeking retention only to boost your ego or compete with other guys is pointless because the true distinction occurs in the spiritual and intimate realm. These are the little everyday triumphs, the sense of mastery over once dominant impulses, and the return to responsibility for our own life. I usually remark that there is nothing wrong with wanting to feel more attractive or stronger physically, but we must be conscious that mastery of our vital energy is the fundamental tenet that supports these changes and allows us to view life more positively. Additional eyes. I firmly believe that this exercise has all the necessary components to reawaken in men a previously dormant feeling of purpose. Every day that passes on this path represents a step closer to solidifying our identity, and seminal retention turns into a test of focus and discipline. When we reflect on the past and acknowledge that there was a period when we were influenced by the opinions of others, we take great pride in the fact that we now determine the course. These little, significant developments support my view that we only require the initial impulse, the catalyst that occurs when we realize, I have nothing to lose, but I have a lot to gain by trying. From that point on, every victory, no matter how minor, turns into a seed that sprouts and bears even greater benefits, like the capacity to believe in one's own instincts and the knowledge that we are not doomed to a life of frustration. For example, I see a lot of folks who report a true paradigm change when they reach 100 days of retention. They believe that something essential has been solidified, as though a new kind of maturity has surfaced, changing their perspective on the world, and most importantly, on themselves. This, in my opinion, is proof that the practice can have an impact on both family and professional facets. The people who live with us find us more intriguing as a result of our increased safety, creativity, and focus. Thinking back on some men's early opposition, I see that it stems from beliefs and prejudices, many of which are supported by contemporary culture, which trivializes sexuality and diminishes impulse control. Developing seminal retention, in my opinion, is swimming against the tide of immediacy. It is making the deliberate decision to resist giving into ephemeral cravings that sap our vitality and turn it into a vicious cycle of discontent. As a result, I also emphasize that this shift takes time and requires perseverance, and most importantly, the willingness to recognize that every challenge is a step in the right direction. Men may be encouraged to try something new by the habit of dealing with their first training frustration and lack of results. How many of us have been in circumstances where we insisted on the same approaches, and because to our stubbornness, failed to see that rebalancing our energy was the solution? In the process, I attest that retention not only promotes strength and muscle growth, but also helps people see their own value more clearly. It's also fascinating to see how personal magnetism, which is discussed a lot, starts to work practically unconsciously. A more confident and composed speech, a more open stance, and a firmer gaze all start to speak for themselves, showing that the person behind each attitude is fully in charge of their own decisions. As a result, I stress how crucial it is that we not let unfavorable remarks or even derision from those who are ignorant of the practice derail us from this course. We've all been doubtful of something we didn't know at some point, and it's normal for those who haven't encountered this degree of consciousness to be critical or doubtful. Since it just takes a strong retention period for even the most cynical people to recognize that something new is occurring, I advise us to constantly maintain our composure and let the outcomes speak for themselves. Those who have previously condemned it often become inquisitive at these points, seeking to understand how this works and what tangible advantages it offers. Admittedly, I see this as a chance to impart my expertise and encourage others to find their own inner strength. This discipline is one I greatly like because it calls for an unfake level of dedication. Because man is aware of when he is lying or cheating, we must be sincere and truthful with ourselves. Over time, we came to understand that maintaining retention is not an unchangeable norm that must be adhered to indefinitely. Rather, it should be carefully incorporated into our routine and objectives. Although each person will progress at their own rate and determine how far they wish to take this discipline, I am confident that the mere experience of lengthier ejaculatory control already yields notable benefits. For instance, it's amazing how willingness and energy show up in gym training as more intensive sets, quicker recovery times, and a decreased propensity to lose motivation. The psychological effects of understanding that we are channeling our will towards something more than fleeting pleasure are also worth considering. Additionally, this kind of mental fortification has consequences in every aspect of life, ranging from the capacity to handle challenges at work to the patience to resolve family disputes. I should also point out that, despite the fact that the text discusses female attraction, this is only one of the good elements that come to light. Retention strengthens a kind of charm that is applicable to every circumstance where we must be present, and is not just limited to love relationships. Knowing that we are masters of an energy that may foster success and significant interior changes, rather than only being captives of impulses, has enormous significance. However, I understand that the goal is to learn how to effectively handle sexuality, rather than to reject it. Although the desire to gain more attention and see results in the gym are not inherently negative, they ultimately serve as only the beginning of this larger understanding of our potential as humans. The feeling of achievement we get when we realize that we have transitioned from a state of despair and frustration to a vibrant existence with defined goals and increased confidence is, in my opinion, one of the best joys. The world notices, our family notices, women notice, but we notice most of all. Additionally, we shift from believing that nothing is working to seeing that we have the power to influence reality itself. The potential to extend this strategy beyond the individual and establish a network of conscious guys who support one another in practice and experience sharing is what constantly excites me. When properly channeled, this collective power changes not just the lives of individuals, but also how society perceives masculinity and the appropriate use of sexual energy. Since every success story motivates others to try new things, overcome addictions, and become better versions of themselves, I always contend that knowledge sharing and community support are essential components of this journey. It is satisfying to observe how each story of seminal retention addresses the waking of a higher consciousness, which is the focal point of self-development. Since mastering our sexual energy also makes us more perceptive and sensitive to what truly matters, spiritual development and energetic discipline are inextricably linked. Instead of squandering time and energy on fleeting and meaningless pleasures, we start to cherish connections that foster reciprocal progress. If someone were to ask me why I think this method is so effective, I would respond that it's because of my own experience as well as the stories of other men who have had remarkable life changes. It is among the most straightforward methods for regaining self-control and cultivating an unwavering feeling of self-worth. The hope that more and more men will realize they are not destined to live a life of frustration, and that they possess a strong resource that can drastically alter their perspective on the world is perhaps what drives me to keep discussing this topic. I used to be skeptical about this notion, but now I firmly believe that seminal retention is one of the keys that can open doors we were hardly aware existed. I attribute this to experience itself, and I believe that the process reinforces itself since the more we see the practice's advantages, the more we desire to learn more about it. Each win turns life into an ongoing upward trajectory, and every day of retention is like a vote of confidence in our own abilities. This strengthens my desire to impart knowledge to people who haven't yet had this sense of independence and inner strength, since I know that for men who feel stuck, finding this route can be a game changer. I see this as a genuine purpose because the world needs guys who are hardworking, morally upright, and committed to giving their all in all spheres of endeavor, not just in the classroom. In this sense, I view this journey as an exciting and life-changing event where every challenge becomes a springboard for achieving spiritual and personal greatness rather than an impassable barrier. Have you ever envisioned discovering an inner power that might illuminate every part of your existence? Ancient techniques like Kundalini activation, the use of crystalline oil, and the art of spiritual liberation are all covered in detail in my most recent book, Alchemy of the Gods. You'll learn how to boost your vitality, develop your physical and mental health, and move closer to real self-liberation. Since it comes in physical, digital, and audiobook formats, you may select how best to absorb this information. The book's purchasing link is fixed in the video's description and comments. First, though, I have some unexpected news for you. The Semen Retention Success Path is the ultimate manual you've been looking for if you're prepared to change your life and get more energy than you've ever thought possible. I compiled my research on the 6 most important key retention themes into an audiobook that is jam-packed with insightful knowledge for your growth. Get yourself for a voyage of personal development and self-discovery that goes much beyond the norm. Imagine regaining your vigor, developing deeply and permanently, and discovering a vast amount of vital energy. This audiobook is the secret to reaching a new level of achievement and fulfillment, not merely a source of knowledge. Additionally, you will receive a 30% discount on my exclusive ebook, The Art of Semen Retention for Men, which is more than 20 pages long and contains powerful techniques for your spiritual evolution, personal development, emotional balance, self-awareness, and self-development when you purchase the Semen Retention Success Path. You will discover techniques that will enable you to realize your full potential, deepen your spiritual connection, and discover your life's purpose. Additionally, we now have a new members option on YouTube for those who wish to support the channel even more. A unique chance to take advantage of special privileges like early access to content, special lives, and much more is to become a large supporter. We will be very inspired by your help to offer even more news and explore these and other important themes in greater detail. To learn more about our offers and to start this path of transformation, bravery, and discovery, click now. I find feminine intuition fascinating since it transcends visual perception and any other surface-level artifice we might employ. I, Laert, have seen that a man who practices seminal retention develops an almost tangible aura that draws women's attention on its own. There's something about the way we walk, speak, and occupy space that conveys quiet authority, even when we're not attempting to stand out. Women seem to have an intrinsic ability to pick up this communication, which I like to think of as a vibratory signal that we put into the environment. It is an invigorating quality that arises from inside and cannot be turned off or faked, unlike a store-bought perfume that you spray to impress. Because women are observing not just what we say but also what we don't say, this phenomenon piques their interest. They sense that powerful presence that shows up in the little things. It becomes evident that this attraction grows stronger and presents opportunities that appeared far off when retention grows. It seems as though life is working together to create opportunities, and this is closely related to the mindset we develop and the optimistic, clear thoughts we feed ourselves every day. Some people question the law of attraction, but I typically argue that when we combine a disciplined mindset with actual action, we produce a potent combination that makes positive circumstances appear almost automatically. I've been in circumstances when I didn't even have any specific plans, but the opportunities grew because I maintained my energy level and the belief that something positive was on the horizon. In this context, feminine intuition relates to an indisputable metaphysical dimension. Regardless of whether a man tries to express it or not, there is a subtle quality that causes a woman to recognize when he is bursting with living energy. Even though the words are not said, the body speaks, the voice exudes assurance, the face exudes security, and all of this functions as an unseen code that people can read remarkably quickly. This, in my opinion, is not a magical power, but rather a natural human sensitivity that they are better able to control. It has always been there, and has only recently been explained by many spiritual and scientific perspectives. I also understand that romantic relationships are not the only context in which this fascination exists. Cultivating retention has a profound impact on how we conduct interactions in professional settings. People start to value our thoughts, trust us more, and create more opportunities for us to contribute. A forceful yet composed demeanor can come off as more convincing than a speech full of empty words. Therefore, this effect happens on a non-verbal level. And for that same reason, I stress that it's not just about getting attention from women or drawing attention to yourself. Realizing that this energetic refining creates a cycle of ongoing growth in all facets of life is crucial. I emphasize that by upholding this internal dedication, we are endowed with a sensitivity that enables us to recognize connections, alliances, and collaborations that were previously overlooked. The tone of life itself becomes more vivid, and I'm not saying it in a flowery way to impress. I can personally attest to this disparity because before adopting the retention technique, I felt more disorganized, more vulnerable to outside viewpoints, and less aware of the chances that presented themselves. The ability to maintain one's principles and objectives in the face of potential distractions and temptations is what I mean when I speak about mental discipline. We start to develop a sort of radar for what is beneficial to us and what detracts from progress, just like a woman can sense our vitality. It gets easier to turn down invitations that looked attractive at first, or to break bad habits that we knew would eventually hurt us. We seem to be in a condition of perpetual awareness, prepared to seize every opportunity that presents itself. This does not imply that the procedure is easy and problem-free. Situations that challenge our determination, such as an unexpected romance or any circumstance where desire seems to take over, frequently occur shortly after we make the decision to withhold our semen. I prefer to think of it as maturing. After overcoming these challenges, we come out stronger and more aware of our priorities. The focus shifts back to female intuition at this point because if we men are able to sense this extra energy that shows up in our posture, then so are they, but with a sharper sense. After a time of retention, men frequently claim that women who had previously shown little interest begin to contact them or give them overt signs of interest and attraction. When we comprehend the vibratory nature that controls our interactions, this makes perfect sense, but it may even frighten others who are not accustomed to it. Erotic action is not the only manifestation of sexual energy. It is a form of creative energy, a life-giving power that can be directed toward any endeavor, whether it be academic, artistic, professional, or spiritual. A woman observes something special when she encounters a man who has mastered the use of this energy. The lack of hopelessness, the disengagement from instant outcomes, and the calm demeanor of someone who refuses to be swept away by fleeting surges of desire. She feels a great deal of admiration for this, since it conveys security and maturity, two qualities that are sometimes absent in a culture that is used to rapid fulfillment. The way we handle our vital energy is, in my opinion, the fundamental cause of this phenomenon, despite the fact that we frequently attempt to explain it using words like charisma or confidence. I always respond that there is much more involved when people question if it is sufficient to keep semen in order to attract attention, since there is no use in retaining energy if we do not also cultivate the cerebral and emotional aspects. We must foster positive attitudes and feelings, establish specific goals that give our work purpose, and maintain an open mind so that we may grow from the events that come up. Only then will this awareness grow and force us to intentionally seize every opportunity. I point out that getting the attention of women can be viewed as a gauge of our ability to manage our own essence, but it shouldn't be the final objective. In order to deal with this in a healthy way, we must realize that as we grow on the inside, life offers us more opportunities for meaningful interactions and connections, not just in the area of love, but in all human relationships. This chapter also emphasizes how important it is to observe this sensitivity outside of romance and relationships. Many people overlook the fact that female intuition extends to social circles, including friends, family, and even the workplace. I see this as a chance for both parties to improve, as by creating relationships based on genuineness, we also have a beneficial influence on others around us. Nothing on this trip is static, which is what I mean when I speak of a constant flow of growth. Every encounter, discussion, and choice we make contributes to the solidification of our evolutionary trajectory. And seminal retention serves as a catalyst that speeds up this process by giving us the opportunity to stay in a state of inner awareness, prevent energy waste, and direct our strength towards something that actually improves us. I also see a motivational component to this strategy, because we want to keep growing when we see that even minor adjustments to our conduct and how we handle sexual energy may have a big impact. We learn to pay closer attention to what we read, hear, and even say, because any mental chatter can divert us from our goals. Additionally, this reinforces the sense of safety and independence that women tend to grasp even more readily. This dynamic exchange makes me think that there is a natural equilibrium between opposites, where the woman plays an intuitive part by adding sensitivity and heightened perception to the dynamic, and the guy can play a role by offering solidity and inner strength. Naturally, it's not about forcing fixed positions. Rather, it's about acknowledging that each person has a special contribution to make, and that a woman feels more comfortable opening up and trusting a man who controls his own energy. This reciprocal regard for the contributions that each individual can make naturally leads to more peaceful relationships, whether they be friendly or romantic. Since we frequently underestimate the impact that our presence has on the outcomes we get, I also examine how this idea might be utilized in the workplace. Men who engage in retention exercises have more mental clarity, a more strategic perspective, and an unshakable will. Women are more likely to feel confident in our competency and our capacity to lead or work together on pertinent tasks when they are aware of this. Thus, a quality that was previously thought to be exclusively associated with the intimate and sexual realm turns out to be beneficial in daily life when it comes to long-term objectives, professional advancement, and business. When we stop functioning in fragmented ways and realize that our energy is one and pervades every aspect of life, I find myself in awe of how everything links. The chapter also emphasizes that this sensitivity and opportunity opening are not coincidental. They are the outcome of making a deliberate decision to invest in self-observation, discipline, and positivity. This process can be compared to sowing seeds in fertile soil. We are watering these seeds with every day of retention, every positive thought, and every attitude grounded in our values, and they eventually grow into prosperous circumstances and meaningful interactions. When it comes to accepting what the universe throws at us, it makes all the difference that we are now paying attention to every sign, whereas previously we were walking around blindly, oblivious to the people or opportunities around us. I emphasize that internal growth is the foundation of this, since there is no use in preserving the semen if we do not also make an effort to enhance our morals, relationships, and character. I think that this combination, seminal retention and ongoing engagement in learning and virtues, improves outcomes in a remarkable way. This belief is based on my own experiences as well as the experiences of numerous others who have chosen to attempt this technique, either out of curiosity or desperation due to an inadequate standard of life, rather than on nebulous notions. As we begin this process, we discover that discipline calls for consideration of not only the sexual realm, but also our mental diet, the kinds of businesses we keep, and the routines that either push us further or closer to our objectives. And in this wider framework, female intuition becomes even more important, since this sophisticated radar determines if man is actually in agreement with an evolutionary proposition, or if he is feigning control over something he does not possess. Those who experience the vibration we send so truly cannot be tricked. Because we live in a world where the dissonance between words and attitude has practically become the norm, women are often fascinated by this stance when they perceive coherence between our actions and our talk. He would thus note that she is drawn to this inner truth when she encounters someone who exhibits consistency in her actions. Since this discipline and silent energy permeate all he does, I like to imagine that a guy who practices retention naturally becomes a role model for others around him. Have you ever considered how many chances you lose when you don't use your own energy? If everything mentioned here has made you feel agitated, it might be time to make a change and break the cycle of irritation. If this content was helpful to you, please like it, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss anything, and watch the next video now. It might be what's needed to transform it.